Welcome back to Haunted by Tapes with the Frog Brothers Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of Haunted by Tapes with the Frog Bros Podcast. Tonight's special feature film is the movie miniseries Salem's Lot.
1979.
1979. There's some good in this movie. There's a lot of bad. And there's some
This is going to be a short one, I think, because this is my first time watching it. I had it in part of a Stephen King collection on DVD. And it's 1979. They probably did a miniseries because they didn't want to do a 3-hour movie, and they're trying to fit a lot of the book in there. I get that. The disappointing part is it's directed by Tobe Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist. And it does not, it's 3 hours long. Right? You cut an hour and a half out of it and leave a really good movie.
Well, that's the issue, though, and it happens to a lot of Stephen King stuff. Like, he's very much been victimized by this miniseries format of stuff because the books, there's a lot in them, right? Now, I haven't read a lot of King, but I just know that his shit's in-depth. It's very full, and so to break that down to a movie script that works just as a single film isn't easy. But, I mean, this is the prime example of you could have taken this concept, just taken the fun shit out of it, and made a great movie that would have been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And instead, this miniseries is like over 3 hours or just at the 3-hour mark. And some of it's very fucking painful because there's like very slow plot development and just kind of side stuff that's probably reads great and helps build the character development, but in a movie you don't need that much character development.
I was just the church thing at the beginning was interesting, the flash, and then you flash back, and you're in this town, basically Salem's Lot. We get it, population 2013. Guy drives into town. Kid notices, you see Fred Willard. You're like, all right, cool. Bonnie Bedelia, all right, cool. Nothing much going on. Lots of character development, I guess, which I didn't give a fuck about. All of a sudden, this writer is fucking Bonnie Bedelia, and you're like, all right, I guess. And they're talking about the Marston house or whatever. That's what he's writing. He's there to write about. Which Richard Straker moved in there recently with his business partner. Well, he opened an antique shop with an unknown business partner named Kurt Barlow, who ends up being the fucking blue vampire that's obviously very reminiscent of Nosferatu, but very much its own thing, too.
Yeah, at first glance, it looks kind of like the Nosferatu, but it's its own unique thing overall.
I do like the character of Mark and how he's into horror movies and shit like that. It was one of those earliest depictions of a character like that in a movie who's super into that stuff.
Yeah.
Coming to mind is also Corey Feldman's character in Friday the 13th 4. But
yeah, and that character just was totally underdeveloped for part of the movie. I mean, obviously he survives through the end because of his knowledge.
That's what I mean. Like up until the point where you see him actually doing that stuff, that took, I don't know, an hour and a half into the movie.
Well, they show him in the play, rehearsing for the pageant or whatever they call it, and
I ignored that.
So you get a glimpse of him there, and then he's doing the rehearsals later on at his house, and his friends are asking about all the movie stuff, and then his dad comes in and is like, hey, aren't you going to outgrow this stuff soon? He's like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So you want to like that character, but they just don't give him much to do until way later, and so it feels like...
Still the most interesting character. I mean, no one else is even mildly interesting except the hot lady who's banging Fred Willard behind her husband, whose psycho's back.
Oh, yeah.
Which that scene is interesting. You're like, all right, this could be interesting. It's like, do a couple more takes, though, because these scenes with Fred Willard are not great. Like, you could do a lot more interesting things. Like, just have Tarantino direct that scene, even just that scene, and imagine how good it could be with new life into it. But, man, they really dropped the ball, but whatever. I've not read the book, also, to be fair, So
this is King's second published novel. And so, obviously, he started out strong with movie adaptations and everything else, right? So, but this is kind of like that first lot. And I'd love to know what his thoughts are on this. It's just kind of...
I do like the kid vampire at the window of Danny's window. and he's just like smiling and lets him in and shit. That scene is creepy as fuck, and I remember seeing it as a kid, and that's like the only thing I really remember of this. But I remember it being fucking horrifying.
So yeah, this is
also Lost Boys vibes. Lost Boys vibes before Lost Boys, obviously. I feel like they definitely watch this. And Fright Night.
I feel like
Fright Night, the ending, Lost Boys throughout.
I feel like Fright Night and Lost Boys took note from this and just did something better with it.
Oh, for sure.
And something timely, because this movie goes between like wanting the house to be haunted in its own thing. You know, like they have all this dialogue around about it. We don't actually see anything about that. We see the vampires there, which is what gives it the threatening aura.
Yeah.
Which I think the miniseries really misses out on, because I think in the book it talks a lot more about the house being evil itself as opposed to just plot points or dialogue that's fucking boring.
Again, you cut all that out and you cut all the fucking dumb character development. All the vampire shit is cool.
Yeah.
All the kid vampires, the funeral, the one guy jumping onto the coffin being bitten by Danny at his own funeral, you know, or like later on.
So
all that shit was good.
Yeah, I mean you get the big TV miniseries adaptation here, right? And you know, and it's not like the cast, like, you don't want to hate. So David Soul is Ben Mears, right? He's not terrible. He's just so boring because he doesn't have great dialogue.
And his hair is distracting because it's so dated.
Yes, it is. Now, Bonnie Bedelia as Susan Norton is great.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
She's the teacher, but if you're wondering why does that sound familiar, she's also the wife in Die Hard.
What's her name? Susie?
I forget what her maiden name is that she's trying to go by.
Gennaro is the last name.
Yeah. Miss Gennaro.
McLean Gennaro.
Miss McLean.
Can't remember her first name, though. That's weird.
Yeah, so she's pretty good in that, and like her parents are interesting. Like some of the side characters aren't bad, but yeah, Fred Willard is good, but he's again kind of underutilized here, right?
I mean, even the scenes that he's in where he's acting dramatic, he's doing a bad job. So I think he's okay during normal stuff, but when he's getting the gun pointed at him, I'm like, well, Jesus
gun
Christ,
and the
do another
stuff.
take. Do another take. This is fucking cut.
Yeah, and it's like it's so bad because it's for TV, and you're like, you're cutting out so much of what could be amazing in this movie.
He's like holding the gun. He's just literally going like this.
Like the concept itself is amazing, and so I kind of want to read the book. Just there's another movie version coming out. In 2004, they did another TV series of this with had Rob Lowe in it, and I'd never heard much about it.
That's funny because Rob Lowe's in The Stand.
Yeah.
As a deaf and mute guy, or maybe just mute. I don't remember. I've only watched it like once.
Yeah, so there's so much you want to like about this movie, but I was just fucking bored 90% of the time. The 10% that was interesting was like when they're doing a little bit of the moving of the coffin and getting that around. Like there's a couple of moments in there that are, like you get spooky vibes, but they draw it out way too fucking long. Like the whole car trip, moving the box and everything. It's cold. It's cold. It's cold.
Well, yeah, exactly. I fast forwarded through some of that stuff, and I'd never watched this before. I don't know what that tells you, but I was literally like, no, I can't do this. There's just too much. 3 hours of this? No. Give me the vampires.
Well, they just rehash like what they're talking about over and over. Like this box is cold. This box is cold. And you're like, yeah, we get it. The fucking box is cold.
I don't know. I get it. There's probably people who are diehard fans of this who are like, you guys are lunatics, and I get it. I'll watch it again at some point and really give it a shot. But I was like, it was late at night too, and I just had no time for bullshit. So,
well, like I said though, I mean, there's other versions of this. There's a movie coming out soon. There's the other TV series version of this. So there's obviously it's.
But I like the effects and the time. That's what I'm saying. The vampire scenes in this, like I said, the kid floating out there, then the guy jumping in on the coffin and getting bit after he opens it up. Besides the fact that every time when someone gets bitten early on, they just fade to black because commercials and shit.
Yeah.
And because they couldn't show a lot on TV, especially in 1979. So, dear God, is it fucking horrifically unviolent.
I guess to me, that's the other piece that really made this boring. Is like even the spooky stuff can't be too spooky because there's just no...
Is there ever blood other than like that one drop of blood on that guy?
No, I don't think so. And it's like, yeah, it's clearly a sign of the times for a TV movie, a TV miniseries, right? And
I like, again, Barlow's design. Barlow getting staked with the hammer, again, reminds me of the... There's a vibe of this where Stephen King is clearly influenced by older vampire stuff because this is 1979. He wrote it in the mid-'70s where what do you have in vampire stuff before that? Dracula, then you have the Universal Dracula, and you have the Hammer Dracula stuff. That's mostly it. And you might have even Blackula by that point. But, you don't have a bunch of other vampire movies yet. So he's kind of modernizing it, you can see. So in a way, it's awesome, but also just the execution could have been a little better.
The execution is like clearly made for TV because it's just so family friendly and driven, and the sad thing is like there's like made for TV movies that are from the 80s or early 90s that are better than this, just around spooky content because they have better scares and stuff. Like this, like you want it to be scary. Like the kid floating outside the window several times is legit spooky. Like that's some of the scariest shit in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's not even that scary. That just like looks cool and is well done. And like him tapping on the glass and scratching the glass is fucking amazing. Like I loved the scratching the glass because it wasn't like a whole conversation, a dialogue. It was something else. So.
Burned into my skull like the clown outside of the fast food joint in Killer Clowns.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and so that's a great scene. The stuff at the end, like where they're on the run from the vampires, like that's almost is going to make a more interesting movie too. And then I guess King had more plans to do this, but he's kind of got his own multiverse of cross characters and stuff in his world. So I guess there's other stuff that kind of continues in the same vein. That's same universe, but didn't get too far into that all that yet. So. It's kind of essential viewing, though. If you haven't seen it, you do need to see it just to kind of figure out where the modern vampire genre comes from, because I kind of feel like this spearheads that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see this, and then you see like Friday the 13th, and you see Halloween, you can kind of see where some of the modern horror stuff came from. So when you combine those darker, more violent elements, then you get the modern vampire movie, or the 80s vampire movies, like the classics that everyone loves. So...
Pretty much, it seems that way at least. There's more vampire movies I haven't seen, obviously. What's that one called? Vamp or Vamps? I haven't seen that. I haven't seen John Carpenter's Vampires, or is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I need to get a hold of that and see that. I need to get a copy of Near Dark, which is one of those online have-to-order things.
Yeah, I just got the digital copy of that, but it's great. Yeah, so, I mean, if you want to see a vampire movie and kind of see where a lot of this stuff's coming from, check it out. I'd recommend it for that reason, more or less to know your King history and to know your vampire lore history. But the thing, like, the whole movie should have just cut out the whole haunted house vibe, because that was just drawn out too much, and then them misdiagnosing, like, the vampirism in it all, right? Like, oh, it's this, and you're like, they just had too many scenes where they went back and repeated dialogue over and over.
Yeah.
And, like, the book may do that, but the book's connecting the dots and, like, giving you, like, intense detail that, this just doesn't do.
Yeah. Like I said, I wouldn't know.
And then, like, the whole fucking town dies, and, like, you don't even care. I guess for me, that was the thing about this movie, is, like, I don't care about any of these people dying, because none of them are, like, fucking genuine good people or anyone that you're like, oh, man, that really sucks to be them.
You know what's fucked up is that you become one of those people that you're like, oh, that's the same that she died. She was really hot.
That's all this movie offers, is the only reason to care if someone died. Yeah, and like, oh, okay, yeah. And then at the end, you realize that the girlfriend or love interest is, the vampire, and he stakes her.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah, he does.
Yeah, stakes her.
She's like, kiss me, and he's like, I'm going to stake you.
And even that, they make that, like, boring, just because there's no blood on any of those stakings, right? It's all shot from certain angles to protect it, to hide it, and, like, imagine how fucking gory the new take's going to be in this.
Softcore porn of horror.
It is. It's like the Cinemax. Like,
you're not seeing the stake go in.
Yeah, exactly. You don't see any of that, and it's what makes it boring, besides that and the repetitive dialogue, but it's essential viewing just in the fact that you need to know
there's no bloodshot.
Yeah, you need to see this to know where stuff's coming from and to see what it influenced, I'd say, right? You gotta... It's like, when you find a band you like, you gotta go listen to the bands that influenced them, and that's when you really start getting into some gold. You gotta see who did it first, see where it comes from. Now, with music, that's usually a lot more enjoyable than...
Yeah, like when you're like, oh, the Nirvana, like, listen to the Replacements a lot, you're like, oh, Kurt Cobain sounds exactly like this singer, and the Replacements are better. Yeah, I said it.
Yeah.
Fight me.
Yep. Well, that's pretty much it for Salem's Lot. There's some good stuff in it, but 90% of it is fucking boring.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're going to piss some people off with this opinions, but I don't know. Like
I'm not trying to piss you off. I'm just saying, like, I had never seen this. I watched it kind of essential viewing. Like, I will say the same thing about the It miniseries is, and it's not like the same level, but people have like really strong opinions about that and love it because they grew up with it. That was their first introduction to Stephen King, and to me, I'm just like, it's okay.
See, I love it. The It miniseries, I fucking love it. I could watch it, all of it. There's nothing I think that needs cut out of that. So I'm sure there's people that feel that way about this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not necessarily the dialogue or that. It's just like it's the made-for-TV vibe of it for me that makes that.
I kind of like
less
that
special,
though.
Yeah,
like, it's a different vibe, and it's like
but for me, that's what bothers me about it because I'm not nostalgic for it like you are. Like I didn't watch that when I was super young, so.
The Stand is also that.
Yeah,
but it's like the end of the world thing. So
yeah, and for me, some of those movies just work for that nostalgia vibe, right? Because they hold up, you have good memories of it, and so you still enjoy it for that, even though you're.
Yeah, but even though. I like finding movies that fit in with that nostalgic vibe that I never saw. So I was really hoping this would be really good.
Me too.
But
I was like, oh, we got to see Salem's Lot. You know, it's getting remade here. There's all this stuff. It's King's early work. Okay, it's got to be something. And then you watch it and, well, it's two horses fucking.
Yeah. Like I said, cut half of it out and it's a fucking great movie, I think. And add some blood maybe. Throw a pair of tits in there for good measure. You know, I mean, fuck it. While we're at it. Blood-soaked, blood-covered titties.
Well, they have this whole affair theme on there, and nowadays would be like a whole, like, intense sex scene and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what they do with it.
Blood orgy.
Well, that's something. All right, let us know if you love this movie or if we're wrong. Let us know if we got it wrong. We don't know.
Yeah.
First time view for each of us.
Good night, everybody.